let's talk about some of the other good things that have happened for the band that are just a result of the fact of you guys consistently networking with people and talking to people and keeping your name out there. So you got to play for the president.
Yes, we did play for the president.
He was not the president at the time, but it was awesome. Elizabeth, you talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think I can fairly say that everyone in the band was fans of Obama very early on. Obviously, he was our senator prior to him even running for president, and I think we were all fans of him even then. And when he declared that he was going to run for president, I think at the very beginning, nobody thought he had much of a chance. I think, nobody. The campaign was still pretty small. They were just getting started, and they happened to have their campaign headquarters in my office building downtown. And so I would ride the elevators with people who worked for the campaign, and I got to know a couple of them, and I said, hey, if you ever need music for, events or fundraisers or for online commercials or anything, you can have our music, or we know a lot of people who would volunteer. So we got involved in a fundraiser plan for him early on, and it was supposed to be a double door, and I think it was us and just...
Abbey Pub, actually. I think it was an Abbey Pub show.
Abbey? Wow. And it just kept, it kept getting kind of postponed and getting bigger and bigger, and eventually ended up being at the Riv, and was us and who else? Third Eye Blind Guy and Macy Gray and Wilco. Was the whole
Third Eye Blind Guy.
Yeah.
Changes played. They were on the bill originally with us at Abbey Pub, and so both of us were just like, "What is happening here?" But it was so cool. It was a blast. And of course, we've never played the Riv before, but I've been going there since I was a kid. That was awesome. That was an awesome night. And it's just Elizabeth just making sure that people knew that we want to help. We're available. Our music's there for you. Like, we're excited about the campaign. She's good at that.
It's about talking to somebody in the elevator, which is about as old school as it gets,
Yeah.
So, you're like 3 seconds or whatever, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. What about going to Asia?
That was also me and my craziness, my persistence. I love to travel, and I like to go unique places in the world, and I like to go overseas. And so I found out through a friend of a friend that the State Department has musicians to go and perform overseas, like, showcasing American culture. And so I found out how that kind of program kind of works, and I had a contact at the Mongolian embassy. So he put me in touch with the person in Mongolia who plans all the cultural programming, including the music acts that come over. Usually they're I would say more traditional, jazz, bluegrass kind of stuff, but I was like, why not a rock band? So I basically pestered this woman who books the bands in Mongolia for 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, until she finally kind of relented, and I think she realized more than anything that I wasn't going to go away. So they agreed to have us. Unfortunately, the timing was we came in February in Mongolia, which is it's really, really cold.
Here, it's -22 is the average Fahrenheit temperature. Like literally -22.
I often annoy people in Chicago because I'm constantly saying, like, if you think it's cold right now, like it's been chilly lately. It's been like single digits, and I'm like, just imagine subtracting 25 degrees off from how it feels right now.
Well, did it turn out to be a good experience for the band?
Matt, do you want to answer that question?
It's a once in a lifetime experience. There's no way we weren't going to do it. We were super excited. I went as the band manager and booking agent or whatever, and I really wanted to put on a great show everywhere we went, and it quickly became obvious that wasn't going to be possible. We had to rely on them to supply a lot of the instruments, electricity, heat, sorts of things, bare bones in a lot of the cities. I had to kind of adjust my line of thinking. Towards the end, I had a lot more fun. When we first arrived, the first few shows were really tough, but you have to kind of realize they're not comparing you to a band they saw last night that's playing the same kind of stuff. You know what I mean? To them, it was definitely different, and I think they appreciated it either way. And once I relaxed a little bit, we had a lot of fun, and it was awesome. I mean, we met amazing people. The music over there is really, really cool.
Actually, early on, also we had an experience where we were getting set up for a show, and it was really stressful, and they were like, oh, these musicians want to perform for you, and they brought us into this side room, and they just picked up these instruments, and they played, and they were... They were super amazing. Yeah, it was ridiculous. They were so good. We're like, why are we here? Like it was a small town in the middle of nowhere in Mongolia, and they had these great musicians playing, and we felt a little humbled.
Stressing out about like not having enough like literally one show they had one outlet, you know, and we're a 6-person band, and we'd brought like synths and stuff like that, and so we would stress out about that kind of stuff. And yeah, they came out and played a very acoustic performance, and it was fantastic, and it just puts things in perspective. It's great, but it's also, it's the most polluted city on the planet in winter, the capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, so you can taste the air, and everybody wakes up with basically a cold or a cough the very first morning you're there, and so singing wasn't happening, and that, it was just, so it was tough, but once we sort of adjusted our goals and our thinking, it was pretty amazing.
Well, Elizabeth had asked me if I thought it was a good idea, and I was like, I think bands underestimate how important it is to have stories to tell. It's like so many bands approach Greg Cotter and me, and they say, write about us. It's like, okay, what have you done? Well, we got up to like Thursday nights once in a while at the Double Door. It's like, all right, what else you got? And it's like, now, whoever interviews you at some point, will now ask about what was it like to play Mongolia, among many other stories. It's like you can't. It's the experience. I don't know anybody else who's been to Mongolia, and I know you two, right? And B, it's having stories to tell as the band, and C, it's just what are you making music for if not to have these kind of adventures?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. And to be honest, in the past couple of years, we haven't been able to tour as much as we used to, whether because people's day jobs have gotten more serious, some people got married, I had a baby. So in a lot of ways, we haven't hit the road as much as we used to, and that's been kind of a bummer. But it takes something like this where, it's like we've had trouble getting 2-week Midwestern tours together in the past, but once it was like, okay, guys, we've got an opportunity to go to Mongolia, everyone's like, yes, we're doing that. You know what I mean? So it got us out there. It was awesome in that respect. And talk about a bonding experience, you know what I mean?
Well, and there's got to be some songs on the next album, right? Inspired
by
Mongolia.
Absolutely. And like, I don't know, you're probably leading up to this to some degree, Jim, but just like you said with the elevator pitch and with the Mongolia thing, it's like the coolest stuff that has happened to us in most cases has been a result of getting in touch with somebody face to face, and even though the internet provides an unbelievable number of opportunities, it really does feel like people, I don't think words on the internet mean as much in a lot of cases, and people will just say whatever, and so many empty promises and so many conversations with people that have gone nowhere, whether it's labels or potential booking guys or venues or promoters or other bands, and especially when I think back to things like MySpace, where it was just cannibalistic. It was just bands promoting themselves to other bands all day long and stuff. Eventually someone looked up one day and was like, how come there's no regular people on here anymore? There aren't any listeners, And years of that stuff, I'm not saying don't spend your time doing some of that stuff, but boy, the stuff that's really paid off for us has mostly been the result of interpersonal contact. It really has. I don't know. Words just a lot of times they're empty on the internet, on email, on these social networking sites. People say stuff and they just type it and then they've said it, and then a lot of times it doesn't get backed up. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what else? Are there any other great tales we've missed, or have we? Your comments about it all comes down still to talking to people. I think are probably the best advice for any bands. And these bands that are just too afraid to approach people. It's just silly, how are you going to play for crowds that mean anything if you can't even talk to one person and say, would you consider listening to my music,
It's true, and and actually thinking back, you probably don't remember this, but Jim, I'm pretty sure the first time that you got a Canasta CD was you and Greg were sitting in front of me at a David Bowie show at the theater or something, and I was like, oh man. I was like, that's Greg and that's Jim. I was like, and I and I think I tapped you on the shoulder. And I knew you were into Scotland Yard Gospel Choir, and I was like, those are buddies of ours. We have some stuff in common. Check it out if you have a chance. And here we are talking to you, 10 years later or whatever. And so, I mean, there's another.
I mean, we were not jerks to you, right?
No, not at all. And of course, I did the show. I waited a little before, try to pay attention, But yeah, it was brief, and it was just enough that I could take a CD, and sometimes that's all that matters. Oh. And I think there was a time when the excitement of the fact that emails were suddenly big enough that you could attach a track, like that was cool, that was a big deal. And there was a time where that was new and exciting, and reaching out to people that way was exciting for, I think, both the recipient, and the sender. But now it kind of feels like everyone's inundated, everyone's inbox is just full.
Yeah, but the email that says, Dear Jim, here's my music. Would you consider writing about it for the Sun-Times? When I haven't worked at the Sun-Times in 5 years. Or I still get emails that say, Dear Jim, will you write about this in the Tribune? And it's like, well, that was never going to happen because I never worked there. But, the email, what I'm going with the significant other thing is a little flirting will go a long way. Dear Jim, I know you love Brian Eno, and I know you love Hawkwind. And we don't sound anything like them because we're a rap band, but maybe you'll be interested anyway. I mean, just the fact, it's like Google me, right? I was like, Google me and find out my name at least, And then if you really want to, it's like, Dear Jim, I know you hate Ryan Adams. Everybody in our band does too. Therefore, you should love us. You know what I mean? That is enough to get me to hit the link. Right? Now, it only gets you 30 seconds of streaming audio, right? But it's enough to, get me to... Whereas, when you spell my name wrong and say, write about me in the reader, I'm just, I'm not even going to click on you.
I use an email program that, sends out an email to, 75 different critics, right? It's just sort of like, Dear Critic,
Right,
That's
right. I mean, it's Google. You guys left Google off your list here, right? But, I mean, the 1.5 minutes per critic in pitch that it would take to Google something about them would be so much better spent than probably spending money on a publicist.
Well, and on a related note, it's like I used to book a venue myself, and so I can say this with confidence. If you're trying to get a gig, don't just write the venue and be like, hey, we're a cool band, when can you fit us in? Find a show or a night that makes sense for you, a night where it's like, there's one band on the bill, but it's not full yet, and you'd fit with this band really well. Explain why that you'd make sense for that night, or why you'd be excited about it. You know what I mean? And don't just say, just, look at your calendar and find a date for us. Make the work easy for them, just give them, here's what we're looking to do, and here's why we'd be excited about it, please consider us. And that always went so much further with me when I was booking shows than just the open-ended email, we'll play whenever. It's like, well, that's too much for me to think about,
Yeah. Elizabeth, any other words of wisdom for people who are trying to figure out how to do this?
Well, I think kind of what we're all saying about the personal connections is important, and also to make it, think about people where you have something to offer them. So as opposed to it being like, listen to my music, write about me. I mean, the thing that happened with Obama was because I was like, hey, you can have our music. If you need help, can we help out? We think you're cool. So if there's ever opportunities to make it where you can help somebody else, those are the best time because, everybody likes to have help when they need it. So. No,
and even if you're trying to get a review, it's like, well, if you don't think you can offer a cool story that would be fun for them to write about and would be fun for people to read about, you know what I mean? Then don't offer it, Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.